What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you, Ryan Moody, Jimmy Smith. We're going to try to do one of the more requested topics, which is have us go back and re-commentate a fight. We did this before with a wrestling match. I've never done it with an MMA match. We are going to try to do this. So one of the most requested fights, Kevin Lee, Gregor Gillespie, conveniently also free. We'll put a link down in the description if you want to go back and watch along with us. That's obviously the premise of doing this. As far as this fight, Jimmy, I remember going into this, you've got 11 versus 12, so very balanced matchup, at least on paper. Gregor comes in, all the hype in the world. Kevin Lee, kind of went back and forth on weight, kind of put in some, I'd say, less than impressive performances. I remember when we broke this fight down, we talked about two really good wrestlers, but this is not the way this fight ends up. And to me, I would say right now, this is a signature Kevin Lee win. Maybe obviously not the biggest name we've seen him go against, but this is certainly on his resume, one of the top fights he would put down.
In terms of heat, I mean, Gregor Gillespie had so much heat, and it was, what was his name? Coach of the Raiders right now, Chucky. Why can't I think of his John Gruden. Yeah, John Gruden said one time about the playoffs. He goes, a lot of times it's about juice, and it's a word I picked up doing commentary. Is the momentum somebody has, the push behind them, how much they have going forward. And Gregor Gillespie going in this fight had so much juice. It was almost like, why is he ranked so low? He's kind of the next big thing. He's the one guy who can out wrestle Khabib. He's the one guy who can stop that takedown. And it was almost like, get him past this fight so we can see how he does against top 3, top 5 guys. That was kind of the attitude, if you remember it,
I guess you can't use that word with John Jones, though, right? Like, that'd be a time you have to curtail.
Hey, he'll be here all week.
Be at the Chuckle Hut? No, actually, no. I won't be at the Chuckle Hut. I guess I could be, because based on my jokes, it would hold less than 10 people, so I might be okay depending on your state. Check your local listings. So we're going to go ahead and give this a go. I will let Jimmy do the honors on 3. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Ready? 3, 2, 1, play.
We have the beautiful UFC free fights, and we go right into it. First thing I notice is the stance here. This is not the traditional stance we see from Kevin Lee. I thought it was very interesting that he went with a very low base for this match.
It's smart against a guy like Gregor Gillespie. And it's smart against a guy who's a great wrestler, but hasn't taken on a lot of great names. You want to frustrate that early takedown. And that's something that Chuck Liddell talked about Tito Ortiz. He said, these guys get confidence off the takedown. Stop the first one, and the second and third ones are much harder. Like that. He just went for a diving takedown. You stop that first one, let him know it's not going to be easy. It's an important message.
Right, and Kevin Lee is actually doing a really good job with his jabs right now, getting some distance between him and Gregor. Also, as you said, turning back that first takedown is kind of trying to push him out of his element. This is one we thought was going to stay on the ground, and we're learning just a minute in that it's not going to be that way.
Exactly. You want to send that message to a wrestler right off the top that you might take me down, but it's going to take a lot of commitment. It's going to take that second and third effort. And it's hard to do when a guy just cracks you with a right hand, which is what Kevin Lee just did.
Yeah, and you can see watching this visually, Gregor is starting to back up more. I think he's wearing the punches worse. And although he's landing on Kevin Lee, you can tell Gregor is being taken back out of this element a little bit.
Yeah, and a great thing to remember with fighting or anything is greatness shows over time. A kickboxer who's great will look better as the fight goes on. A wrestler who's great, you might hang with him for a minute. As the fight goes along, you realize, wow, this person's way better than me. And Kevin Lee is throwing that jab right in his face, and it's landing over and over. And Gregor Gillespie, you start out confident, then you start kind of questioning yourself. And that's what Kevin Lee, I think, was doing to Gregor Gillespie early in the fight.
One of the ways I think he's created that doubt is you can see Gregor is standing up a lot taller now, and that's going to factor into how this fight ends. It's almost like Kevin Lee has taken this out of the wrestling division by kind of staying down in that low stance and now invited Gregor to come in and strike, and now he is starting to strike even though he's not getting the success that Kevin Lee is.
But what do you see? You see a guy who is a great wrestler in Gregor Gillespie, but hasn't been forced so far in his career to mix it up well. Meaning the best of all time, the GSPs or whatever, bang, bang, shoot. Shoot, bang, bang. Matt Hughes, the overhand right to the takedown. He was great at that. It was all one thing. And you see Gregor Gillespie is going from, I'm thinking wrestling, I'm thinking striking, I'm thinking wrestling. He hasn't quite filled in the gaps yet. It's comparatively early in his career. He hasn't quite learned how to do that yet.
Yeah, it's strange because
he's in the boxing mode. He's in boxing mode. You don't see him right now setting up takedowns with his strikes.
I was just going to say that as he gets put to sleep here. The feints that he was setting up were not those of setting up takedowns. And just an absolute devastating kick to the face that literally sets him down. We often don't say sets him down, but it does set him down.
It's so devastating, that Undertaker knockout, right? When a guy's stiff on the ground, completely out. And the first thing you think with a knockout like this, and not only Gregor Gillespie's first knockout, his first loss, period, by vicious knockout, you always think, man, is this one of those crossroads moments? Kevin Lee's been down before. He's had tough losses, and, he's shown he can come back from that. Gregor Gillespie, where he is in his career, taking a head kick knockout like that, first big test, man, that's hard to come back from. Very, very difficult.
If the cage was not there, I believe Gregor may still likely be flying in outer space.
It beautifully timed, perfect, out before he hit the ground. They're showing the replay right now. And just so you know, when you do commentary, they're telling you in your ear what replay is coming. And you can say which one you want. Going back, hey, do you have a shot of this? Hey, if you have a good rapport with your producer, all they're going to show you is the violence of that head kick knockout. And by the way, great stoppage by the referee. Look at him. He flies in. He tackles him off of him. And that is how you do it. And they're showing a shot of the commentary team, and Megan O'Leary just looked like somebody threw water in her face reacting to that. But great stoppage, great job by Kevin Lee. Phenomenal performance.
Yes, and to that point, you did mention that was an incredible, not only way that Dan was pretty far back from the fight when that happened. I mean, literally, no one's expecting that to take place, and I think they showed that there with the reaction from the commentators. He did a great job at getting in between not only the fighters, but also doing in such a way where Gregor, who's clearly unconscious, is not being tripped over. I mean, that's a very odd way for someone to land. So not only did he prevent him from taking more damage, he did a great job at respecting where his body was laying, which, in all fairness, I've seen some lower end fights where a guy comes in and steps in and you've got a guy that's unconscious and, they end up tripping over each other and making situations much more worse. You mentioned there, I mean, we can joke about it now because we know Gregor's went on to fight. He's okay. But at the time, we did not know that he was okay. That is a brutal, I would say one of the most brutal knockouts, top 25 for sure that I've seen.
The worst to me is always the long beating bad knockout. When those go together, that always scares the crap out of me. Those are the bad ones. When someone really takes an ass whooping for a long time and then they get knocked out, I mean, this one was brutal. It's a very, very bad knockout. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying when the worst I can think of, one of the worst all time, in my opinion, for the old school fans was Krokop Vanderlei. Because he beat Vanderlei up the whole fight and then hit a head kick knockout that would crack a melon into outer space. It was one of those. And that's always a combination you look for that's bad.
Do you know why is it we don't see wrestlers strike? Two exclusive wrestlers strike more often like that? I mean, I know Kevin Lee's not an exclusive wrestler, but a lot of times we do see when we have two guys that can go in and wrestle predominantly, they either wrestle all the way or they strike.
Because it takes a lot of energy. And I think that's what people who do, if you don't follow college wrestling or Olympic wrestling, amateur wrestling, which I do, I really try to keep up with it and watch as much as I possibly can. The issue is shooting in on somebody and it doesn't work. Takes a ton of energy. If you watch high level wrestling, they don't shoot that often. Even guys with a really great takedown don't do it a lot because if a guy sprawls on you, you're carrying all of his weight and it can really not work out well. That's why they spend most of the time setting it up. So in MMA, even if Gregor Gillespie is a far superior wrestler to Kevin Lee, if you put them on a wrestling mat and, Olympic rules or whatever, Kevin Lee gets smoked. He just isn't as good as Gregor Gillespie. But in an MMA setting where the distance is much, much further, shooting in on somebody costs you a lot of energy. And that's why you don't see even great wrestlers. That's why Ben Askren was something of an anomaly. He would just go for it and go for it and go for it because his style was, funk. That was what he was known for. He could get your big toe and take you down. He just had to grab a hold of something and he was going to get you. But that confidence made him much, much more active than even, guys with real credentials who are way better than their opponents usually don't shoot that much.
I agree. And with that said, what we're going to do is leave this open to you guys. Do you want to see more of these? Do you have a preferred fight that you want to see? I know that me and Jimmy are literally here to do nothing but fulfill your requests for content. So we appreciate you guys checking this out. We, again, hope you guys are staying safe, staying with your families, doing the best you can during these difficult times. And we will be back in the week with more commentary.